I do not see what other people see. I have gotten to know Michael and his family very well. It was a huge moment for my family and for his. That is Tyler Reddick, NASCAR driver for Michael Jordan's 23XI racing team, responding to what has become one of the most debated viral videos of 2026. Because on February 15th, during the victory celebration after Reddick won the Daytona 500 in a historic moment for Jordan's racing team, a brief clip from the Victory Lane broadcast went viral for all the wrong reasons. The footage shows Michael Jordan standing behind Reddick's 6-year-old son, Beau, repeatedly grasping at the back of the child's shirt and waistband area and grazing the child's legs. The clip racked up over 25 million views across Twitter and TikTok within hours. And the comments were not kind. People called it weird. They called it inappropriate. They called it disturbing. And the internet, which had spent decades worshiping Michael Jordan as the greatest athlete who ever lived, started doing something it had never done before. It started turning on him. Now, before we go any further, there is critical context that the viral version of this video deliberately left out, because the clip that went viral was cropped. It was edited to remove the seconds before the interaction that explain what was actually happening. Multiple camera angles from the full NASCAR broadcast show that, in the moments before the clip starts, Beau Reddick had Gatorade and ice dumped on him during the victory celebration. The kid was soaking wet. There was ice in his shirt. And what the viral clip shows, Jordan reaching at the child's back and waistband, appears in the full context to be Jordan trying to shake out the wet fabric and remove ice cubes from the boy's clothing. It is the difference between a disturbing interaction and a goofy celebration moment where a 63-year-old man is trying to help a kid who just got drenched. Stephen A. Smith addressed this directly on his show, saying, "The viral video was cropped to omit crucial footage. This is a hit piece. A vicious, calculated attack on an innocent man. And he is not wrong that the cropping changed the entire narrative. But the fact that his defense was even necessary tells you something about where Michael Jordan's public reputation stands in 2026. Because 20 years ago, this clip would have been laughed off in a day. People would have watched the full video, seen the ice context, and moved on. But in 2026, the internet was ready to believe the worst about Michael Jordan. And that readiness did not come out of nowhere. Let me walk you through how we got here, because the shift in Michael Jordan's public image has been building for years, and this Daytona video was just the tipping point. For most of the 1990s and early 2000s, Jordan was untouchable. He was the greatest basketball player of all time. He was the face of Nike. He was the man who made everyone want to be like Mike. His competitive intensity was celebrated. His gambling was treated as a quirky hobby. His personal life was largely off limits to public scrutiny. He existed in a protective bubble of admiration that very few athletes have ever experienced. And then in 2020, ESPN released The Last Dance, the 10-part documentary about the 1997 to 98 Chicago Bulls season. It was supposed to be a celebration of Jordan's legacy, a victory lap for the greatest winner in sports history. And on one level, it was exactly that. But it also introduced a younger generation to a version of Michael Jordan that the old marketing campaigns had carefully hidden. They saw the man who punched Steve Kerr in practice. They saw the man who ruthlessly humiliated Scott Burrell in front of the team for motivation. They saw the man whose competitive fire was not just intense, but borderline cruel. And instead of being inspired, a significant portion of the audience was disturbed. One of the most common reactions on social media after The Last Dance aired was some version of, "I grew up thinking I wanted to be like Mike, and now I realize he was kind of a bully." And that perception has only grown since 2020. The stories that used to be told as legends of Jordan's competitive greatness started being reframed as evidence of his cruelty. The gambling stories got more scrutiny. The conspiracy theories about his first retirement, the one where he allegedly stepped away from basketball because of a secret suspension related to gambling debts, came roaring back. His reputation as the worst tipper in professional sports became a recurring meme. The falling out with Charles Barkley, once his closest friend, became public and ugly. And the famous "Republicans buy sneakers too" quote, which Jordan allegedly said when asked why he would not endorse a Democratic Senate candidate in North Carolina, was weaponized by a generation that expects athletes to use their platform for social justice. Then came the Charlotte Hornets era. Jordan bought the team in 2010 and spent over a decade as the majority owner. During that time, the Hornets were consistently one of the worst-run franchises in the NBA. Bad drafts, bad free agency signings, a refusal to spend into the luxury tax. And when Jordan sold his stake in August 2023, the narrative was not a successful businessman moving on. The narrative was the greatest player of all time was the worst owner of all time, and he finally gave up. After selling the Hornets, Jordan pivoted hard into NASCAR with his 23XI racing team. He filed a massive antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR's leadership. He became the face of diversity and competition reform in a sport that desperately needed both. And for a brief moment in late 2025 and early 2026, it felt like Jordan was getting a reputation reset. He was being called NASCAR's hottest owner. He was fighting the establishment. He was relevant again for the right reasons. And then the Daytona video happened. And all of the goodwill evaporated overnight. Because the internet does not evaluate incidents in isolation. It evaluates them in the context of everything that came before. And in the context of the bullying revelations from The Last Dance, the gambling stories, the tipping reputation, the Hornets' failure, and the general vibe shift around Jordan over the past 6 years, a cropped video of him touching a 6-year-old was not treated as a misunderstanding. It was treated as confirmation. Craig Carton addressed the tension on his show by saying, "Optics matter in 2026. Whether he was being playful or not, you cannot be doing that on a global stage with someone else's kid." And that captures the generational divide in the reaction. Older fans who grew up idolizing Jordan see the video and see a guy celebrating and goofing around with his driver's kid. Younger fans who learned about Jordan through The Last Dance see the video and see a man who has a documented history of not respecting other people's boundaries, continuing to not respect boundaries. The social media reactions tell that split story perfectly. One person on Reddit wrote, "MJ has always been a bully in his private life. We saw it in The Last Dance. This just looks like that same aggressive energy in the wrong setting." Someone on Twitter took the opposite view. "I have watched the full clip. They dumped ice down the kid's back. MJ was literally just trying to get the ice out. Context is dead." A TikTok comment said, "The way the kid turns around looks so uncomfortable. I do not care who you are. Keep your hands off other people's kids." And someone on Instagram offered the most measured take. "MJ is 63 years old and drunk on victory. He is basically the kid's grandpa at this point. People need to touch grass." Tyler Reddick himself, the child's actual father, has been the most important voice in this conversation, and his reaction was unequivocal. Speaking to Stephen A. Smith on SiriusXM on February 17th, Reddick said he does not see what other people see. He said he has gotten to know Michael and his family very well. He said it was a huge moment for both families. That is the child's father saying there is nothing to see here. And normally, that would end the conversation. But in 2026, the father's perspective is competing with 25 million views of a cropped video and a comment section that has already made up its mind. And this is where the comparison to other sports legends becomes instructive. Because Michael Jordan is not the first icon to face a late career reputation reckoning. Tiger Woods went through it after the 2009 scandal shattered his carefully curated image. Brett Favre went through it when the welfare fraud allegations surfaced in Mississippi. And in both cases, the public reassessment was not really about a single incident. It was about a pattern that people had been willing to overlook during the peak years finally becoming impossible to ignore. The difference with Jordan is that his peak was so high and the worship was so total that the fall feels more jarring. People do not like finding out that the hero they built their childhood around might just be a deeply competitive, occasionally cruel, sometimes careless human being. And the Daytona video, even with context, forced that reckoning in a way that The Last Dance started but never finished. Michael Jordan himself has not said a word, no statement, no social media post, no interview. And that silence is consistent with his career-long approach to controversy. He does not explain. He does not apologize. He does not engage. It is the same strategy he used when the gambling rumors swirled, the same strategy he used when the Hornets failed, the same strategy he has used his entire post-playing career. And for decades, that strategy worked because the public gave him the benefit of the doubt. But in 2026, silence reads differently. In 2026, silence reads as indifference. And indifference is the one thing the internet punishes harder than anything else. And the question everyone keeps asking is whether this has actually hurt the Jordan brand. The honest answer appears to be no, at least not yet. Jordan brand sales have not taken a measurable hit. Nike has not commented. Air Jordan cultural relevance remains as strong as ever. His tequila brand Syncro continues to operate normally, and 23XI Racing is having its best season. The controversy remains largely a social media war rather than a commercial one. But the reputational damage is harder to measure and harder to undo. Because what this video did, even with the ice context, was give the internet permission to say out loud what many people had been thinking quietly for years. That Michael Jordan's legacy as the greatest is secure, but his likability is not. That the man behind the brand is someone most people would not actually want to be around. And that "Be Like Mike" was always a marketing slogan, not a character reference. So I want to know what you think. Have you seen the full unedited clip, or did you only see the cropped version? And does the ice context change how you feel about the video, or do you think the optics are bad regardless? Because this feels like one of those moments where the internet's reaction says more about us than it does about the person in the video. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I will catch you all in the next one.